Prime Minister is here, may we ask those inside to be seated? And we say good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning, everyone. After careful consideration and review of the current crime situation, His Excellency, the Governor-General, has declared a state of public emergency for the parish of St. Catherine. The Commissioner of Police and the Chief of Defence Staff will give the boundaries and other specifics relating to the operations of the state of public emergency so declared. I decided to advise the Governor-General to make such a declaration on the recommendation of the Chief of Defence Staff and the Commissioner of Police. Today, I will give the public a strategic understanding of the actions of the government as it relates to crime fighting and dealing with violence in the society. Government has as its first responsibility the preservation and protection of life. Government measures and indeed keeps track of deaths in the society, not just for the purposes of statistics, but it is important for government to ensure that the average citizen feels safe and secure. We accept we are
in illegal guns, an increase of 28% compared to last year. We have also continued to prosecute gangs and gang members and are leading several active community engagement programs across the parish. Despite these efforts, as at June 15, the St. Catherine North Division recorded 70 murders and 51 shootings, representing a 52% and 76% increase respectively when compared to the similar period in 2021. Meanwhile, in the St. Catherine South Division, 58 murders were recorded over the period, as was the case last year, and 53 shootings recorded compared to 43 last year, an increase of 23%. 6 weeks ago, the St. Catherine South Division was experiencing a reduction in murders by 40%. The recent conflicts in the St. Catherine North Division have extended themselves into the southern section of the parish to include Portmore and Old Harbour. As a consequence to all of this, and in consultation with the Chief of Defence Staff, we requested that a state of public emergency be declared in the parish of St. Catherine. We have seen the data. We have demonstrated through previous SOEs that this methodology has been very effective in quickly reducing violent crimes. An SOE at this time will allow us the opportunity to optimize available resources, in particular the support from the JDF. As we advance the strategies to reduce crime and violence across all police divisions, we continue our focus on gangs, guns, and gunmen. The Get All the Illegal Guns campaign continues, with 368 illegal guns seized, an increase of 8%. And in June alone, we have already seized 48 illegal guns, and we have also seized 7,449 rounds of ammunition, an increase of 52% over last year. Significant emphasis is being placed on intelligence and investigation, utilizing all available technology. We have built our institutional capacity to respond appropriately with due care and regard for the rights of citizens. Within the boundaries of the SOE, we'll be conducting a suite of operations that will see increased presence and movements of the security forces. We'll attempt to manage the impact of our activities on persons going about their normal business. However, there is likely to be some disruption and delays, and we ask for your patience and understanding as we collectively respond to the violence in St. Catherine. The public can assist by complying with the security officers at checkpoints, adhering to the curfew guidelines, and notifying the JCF of any breaches of professional conduct by members. For persons residing outside of St. Catherine, please advise us if you see persons turning up in your communities that you may have concerns about. The public can contact us, as always, by calling the JCF tip line at 811, police emergency at 119, or Crime Stop at 311. Thank you, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner. I now invite the Chief of Defense Staff to give further details on the SOE as declared in St. Catherine. CDS.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good morning. Following the acceptance of the recommendation for the imposition of a state of public emergency, I will now provide the boundaries of the area being declared. To the north, the boundary extends in a westerly direction along the shared borders of St. Catherine, St. Mary, and St. Anne to the point of the intersection of St. Catherine and Clarendon. To the east, the boundary starts at the easternmost point of St. Catherine at the coastal intersection of the parish boundaries of St. Catherine and St. Andrew. The eastern boundary then extends in a northwesterly direction along the shared parish boundaries of St. Catherine, St. Andrew, and St. Mary. To the south, the boundary continues along the entire coast of St. Catherine and back to the easternmost point of the shared coastal boundary of St. Catherine and St. Andrew. Finally, to the west, the boundary extends in a southeasterly direction along the shared parish boundary of St. Catherine and Clarendon to the coast. This is essentially the entire parish of St. Catherine. While we acknowledge that persons may be concerned about the implications of the internal security operations that occur under a state of public emergency, citizens can be assured that the JDF will operate within the parameters of their training and resources to ensure the protection of the human rights of all Jamaicans. The purpose of these operational activities is not to inconvenience citizens, but rather to add a robust element of security for law-abiding citizens while we work earnestly to rid the communities of criminal elements. We therefore ask that the citizens who live, work, or travel within the areas impacted by the SOE cooperate with the members of the security forces on the ground. We are all working to a common goal of making Jamaica a safer place, and this can only be achieved through a unified effort. So I endorse and reinforce the words of the Commissioner of Police to ask citizens to engage us through the various means of providing information to assist in ridding your communities of crime and violence. Thank you.
I now invite our Minister of National Security, DPM Chang, to give a briefing. Minister Chang.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, Commissioner of Police, Mr. Jonathan Anderson, and our Chief of Defense Staff, ladies and gentlemen. The St. Catherine North Division has been the venue of continuing gang violence over the last 2 months, escalating seriously to another threat level that took it beyond ordinary means of law enforcement. There was a quadruple shooting on the 5th of June, and after that there were intermittent shootings and individual murders. Another day of 5 murders took place on the 14th of Tuesday the 14th. There are reports of increasing extortion and threats to law-abiding citizens, indicating a level of intolerable violence within the community of St. Catherine, in particular urban St. Catherine. The criminals are terrorizing our citizens, inducing fear to our citizenry within the community. These criminals are dynamic and heavily armed, moving through many areas of the community in popular vehicles, areas where they are known by the citizenry and are expected to move, but are in fact members of gangs intertwined within the space of the community. Necessary laws to remove these violence producers is embedded within our state of public emergency. To remove them and stabilize the community. The gangs are embedded within the communities. They are members of the community. There are several large gangs across northern St. Catherine, and particularly in northern St. Catherine, there are two big organized units that have, in fact, had persistent criminality in the area. On this basis, the Honorable Prime Minister accepted the advice of the Chief of Police and the Chief Defense Force and advised the Governor General to declare a state of emergency within the area. The violence produced in this area need to be removed immediately to restore order and restore public safety. The security force will find the violence producers. We know where they are. We'll apprehend them and restore calm and public order. The Ministry of National Security provides the required support to the police force. We'll take every step and give every effort and provide the rest of the resources to remove these murderers and violence producers within the community. They are working hard and are impacting on the situation across the country, but these gangs embed in the community, whether it's wildlife or clans, unruly or one other, and many others out there, we'll find them, we'll dismantle them, and remove the criminal elements from our community. The level of violence and the number of violence producers out there cannot be managed within normal law enforcement activities. The police, security forces require this kind of legislation and legal support to remove them at this point in time. And they'll be kept under continuous review, and the Prime Minister advised as to the station within the St. Catherine space. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Minister. So, by this action, we have formally declared a state of public emergency, and we now so advise for the parish of St. Catherine. And I use the term deliberately. We have now formally declared. The truth is that by whatever standard that you would wish to measure the situation, a state of emergency is an appropriate description for the criminal challenges that exist in the parish of St. Catherine. As to whether the political and legal debates support that, that is another argument. As it stands now, with the laws that are on our books and the best interpretation and advice that we have until a court pronounces, the government must demonstrate to the people that it is willing to act, including to the criminals. If there is an alternative position or a different interpretation or perspective that should come to bear, we are a government that is always a government that abides by the law. And whatever the clarification to the law is, this government will always follow that, because we are a government of law. But we must give our citizens confidence that we will use whatever powers that are available under the law judiciously, reasonably, for the protection of the rights of the citizens. And so I think the people of the country will have faith in this government that it will act using the full powers of the law to address the problems that exist, particularly the problem of crime and violence. I will invite 2 questions. Naomi, do you want to direct the questions?
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. And may I ask for the reporters online, we have about 25, if they have questions to indicate so by raising their hand. Prime Minister, ahead of your coming, I did announce, and just for clarity and transparency, that we do have a very full day, and the expectation based on the advisories we have given media, yes, sir, that we really will be very short this morning. And so let's see who we have online. Is that Mr. Gavin Riley that is on? Oh, he lowered his hand. Okay, Ms. Zara Burton, good morning.
Good morning. My question is for Dr. Chang. In terms of the report from the Integrity Commission some months ago now, where Minister Bunting, at the time, Minister Bunting and Minister Montague had approved firearm licenses for people who were unfit. Question to Dr. Chang, in his capacity, have you ever, after initially being deemed unfit by FLA, have you ever approved gun licenses for people with criminal traces?
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Our final question then, Mr. Siobhan Campbell, Nationwide.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, good morning.
We're hearing you quite well, Siobhan. Go ahead.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Since we're just limited to these two questions, I'll be brief. Do you consider the 2/3 requirements to extend SOEs too restrictive? And is it your intention to seek constitutional adjustments to change this?
The government recognizes that our present legal and constitutional framework, as it is now, needs clarification, needs, in some instances, redefinition. And therefore, we always welcome the court's clarification because it makes it easier for us to define policy. So we welcome the guidance of the court. But we also recognize that the threats that exist to the democracy that we have now are quite different from when the Constitution was conceived. It is a different time. The Constitution was conceived when the threat actors were easily identified. They were sometimes extraterritorial, or they were states themselves. Now we have different kind of threat actors, people who are very much embedded as a part of our society. They are oftentimes citizens. Their actions are not just between citizen and the state acting as referee and arbitrator and protector. They are oftentimes actors whose intention are to control territory within the state, such as dons and gangs, who seek to control ends and corners, as they call it, to create an enterprise out of criminal activity, which is not just street-level crime, but persons who set up an entire business around criminal activity, whether it is narco trafficking, gun trafficking, human trafficking, or financial or cyber crimes. There are persons whose sole intent is to corrupt the state for economic or personal gain. They try to corrupt our regulatory processes. They try to corrupt our law enforcement processes. They try to weaken the state in other ways. And they threaten many of our institutions, our financial institutions. They threaten our law enforcement institutions. And these threats are very sophisticated. The people in the country feel the sharp end of it. They see the murder committed in their community, the shooting up of witnesses and other persons. They see the blatant display of weapons on the street. They see the drive-by shootings. But if you step behind that, the public, and I think General Jamaica would not appreciate and understand the level of organization there is to crime. And once it reaches that level, it is not your normal law enforcement that has to treat with that. The state has to be given exceptional powers to treat with that. My great worry about it is that we have come to accept this as normal. We view ourselves as Jamaicans as part of the global community of people who are, liberal democracies with the strength of the rule of law, not acknowledging for over decades this has been allowed to be undermined by the entrenchment of organized criminal activities. The government is using the laws that are on our books. One thing we have done as a government, and we cannot be criticized for, is to turn back the clock to use our security forces in an extrajudicial way. We don't believe that we can create law and order by ourselves being disorderly and lawless in the exercise of our duties. So in using the exceptional powers, we have gone over and beyond to protect the rights of citizens. And we always want to know if there are things we can do better, and if the court can advise us and direct us as to how we can do better. But in the interim, no one in Jamaica can say that Prime Minister Andrew Holness did not act and did what was necessary to protect innocent lives. I speak for the innocent citizens of the country. If others want to speak for the people who are creating crime or create opportunity of blanket and protection for them to hide behind, that's their business. But you know that I care about your safety and your security, and this government is doing what it has to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Thank you so much to our Deputy Prime Minister, the Honourable Dr. Horace Chang, as well as the Honourable Robert Nesta Morgan, the Minister without Portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for information. We also had with us the Honourable Xavier Main, the State Minister in the Ministry of National Security, Rear Admiral Antoinette Weems-Gorman, the Chief of Defence Staff, Major General Anthony Anderson, the Commissioner of Police, Dr. Derek McCoy, the country's Attorney General, and of course other support staff. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. The news of the day: the parish of St. Catherine declared a state of emergency. May we wish you a good day, everybody.